In the heart of Africa, where the sun painted the earth in gold and crimson every morning, there was a little, forgotten village called Nkalini. Few maps showed its name, and even fewer travelers passed through. Life in Nkalini was simple, yet not easy. The people tilled dry soil, fetched water from far rivers, and survived from harvest to harvest. But within this village lived a boy named Tumo, an 18-year-old orphan who carried more burdens than most men twice his age. He had lost both parents to a fever when he was just a child. Since then, he grew up wandering from hut to hut, sometimes sleeping under mango trees, sometimes in empty barns. The villagers offered him scraps of food out of pity, but no one truly called him family. And yet, despite his hunger, despite his ragged clothes and tired feet, Tumo was known for something rare: his heart. Every morning, he rose before the first rooster crowed, helping elders carry water pots, gathering firewood for widows, and Weeks passed. The bond between Tumo and Nigger grew stronger. The boy's laughter softened the old man's silence, and Nigger, in return, began to share stories. Not ordinary stories, tales of distant lands, of palaces made of marble, of armies with banners brighter than fire. Tumo would sit under the moonlight, eyes wide, listening. "Baba Nigger," he once asked, "how do you know so much about kings and kingdoms?" The old man gave a faint smile, his gaze far away. "Because I have walked among them, child." The villagers scoffed whenever they overheard. "The beggar has gone mad. He dreams of palaces while sleeping in dust." But something in Nigger's voice made Tumo believe. Then, one night, as thunder rolled across the sky, Nigger fell gravely ill. His body shook, his breath came in gasps, and his eyes burned with fever. Tumo sat beside him all night, cooling his forehead with wet cloths, whispering prayers. At dawn, Nigger gripped Tumo's hand with surprising strength. The next morning, before the rooster crowed, Kofi wrapped his mother's scarf around his neck and began walking toward the great desert. The path was endless. The sun burned his skin, and the sand beneath his feet scorched like fire. But as he walked, strange things began to happen. The baobab's whispers were no longer just in his ears. They were in his heart. Do not fear the heat. Every hardship teaches strength. By midday, Kofi collapsed beside a cracked stone. His lips were dry, his stomach empty. Just then, a small desert fox appeared. It looked at him with curious eyes and disappeared into the dunes. Something in his heart told him to follow. Kofi stumbled after it, step after step. At last, the fox stopped near a hidden water spring. Kofi dropped to his knees, drinking deeply, the coolness saving his life. That night, as stars lit the desert sky, Kofi lay on the sand and thought, "Why did the fox help me? Why do strangers offer?" Days later, Kofi reached the border of the desert, where the sand met rocky cliffs. There, in the shadow of the mountains, stood a strange old hut. Smoke curled from its roof, and carvings decorated its walls, symbols of lions, rivers, and stars. Inside, an old man sat before a fire. His hair was white as ash, his eyes deep as the night sky. He looked at Kofi as if he had been waiting. "You seek the truth," the man said, before Kofi could even speak. Startled, Kofi nodded. "Yes, the truth of the whispers, the truth of my people." The old man smiled faintly. "I am the keeper of stories. Every land has one. We guard the memories that trees and rivers cannot carry alone." He opened a leather-bound book, worn with age. The pages glowed faintly, as though alive. "Your baobab is no ordinary tree. It holds the voices of ancestors, but not everyone can hear, only those chosen by both blood and heart." Kofi's chest tightened. "Chosen? Why me?" The old man looked into the. Days later, Kofi reached the border of the desert. where the sand met rocky cliffs. There, in the shadow of the mountains, stood a strange old hut. Smoke curled from its roof, and carvings decorated its walls, symbols of lions, rivers, and stars. Inside, an old man sat before a fire. His weeks rolled by, and life in the village continued its steady rhythm. The markets opened with their usual chatter. The children played by the riverside, and elders gathered under the great baobab tree, sharing stories of old. Yet something lingered in Abeni's heart, a memory of the stranger with wise eyes who had appeared from nowhere and vanished just as mysteriously. She often found herself looking toward the forest path at dusk, half expecting to see his shadow approaching. Some villagers whispered that he might have been a spirit sent by the ancestors, testing their hearts. Others claimed he was a wandering sage, moving from one land to another, carrying secrets too heavy for ordinary people to bear. One evening, just as the sun painted the horizon with deep orange and purple, a figure appeared at the edge of the path. His steps were slow but certain. At night, the villagers gathered by the fire, eager to hear the stranger's story. He stood before them, his cloak catching the firelight, casting a long shadow across the ground. "I was not always a wanderer," he began, his voice strong but tinged with pain. "Once, I was a man of wealth and influence in a faraway city. My home was grand, my table full, and my name respected. But my heart," he paused, clutching his chest, "my heart was empty. I gave nothing, shared nothing, cared for no one but myself." The crowd listened in silence, the crackling fire the only sound. One day, fate turned against me. A storm of betrayal swept through my life. My riches crumbled, my friends disappeared, and I was cast out with nothing but the clothes on my back. I wandered from city to city, and everywhere I went, I saw the same thing. People too busy, too proud, too afraid to give. Hunger and loneliness became my companions, and I asked myself, is there no place left where hearts still breed? The rains had passed, leaving the earth soft and fragrant, but with them came something darker. Strange accidents began to plague the village. Fishermen returned with empty nets. Goats vanished at night, and whispers of curses spread like wildfire. The villagers turned fearful eyes toward Keanu. "You wandered too far into the forest," one elder muttered. "You carried the river's spirit into our midst," another accused. Even Mama Zuri, the woman who had raised him, looked unsure. Keanu's heart ached. He had wanted only to heal the land, but now suspicion weighed on him like a stone. One evening, the council summoned him. Torches burned brightly, casting long shadows across the gathering. The chief's voice was firm. "Keanu, child of no father." Peace slowly returned to the village. The goats reappeared. The fishermen's nets filled once more, and the rains nourished rather than destroyed. The people began to look upon Keanu not as an outcast, but as a bridge between their world and the unseen. Children followed him eagerly, asking for stories of the glowing figure. Mothers sought his advice on when to plant. Hunters asked which paths were safe. Even the chief, once stern, now bowed his head when Keanu spoke. Yet Keanu carried his gift humbly. "I am only a listener," he would say. "The river speaks, I simply repeat." As years passed, Keanu grew into a man of quiet strength. He never sought power, but his words guided the village through storms, droughts, and even wars. Neighboring tribes came to hear the boy, who once had no name, now called the Keeper of the Whisper. One evening, when the moon was high and the air sweet with jasmine, Mama Zuri took Keanu's hand. Her eyes were misty. "My son," she whispered. "Yo,